I want to start off by acknowledging and thanking the Coast Salish people whose traditional territory we are currently on, and express my gratitude and our gratitude to the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations for giving us the opportunity to learn and share today on their traditional territory. So, those of you who missed last night, my name, and I also have a habit of not talking into the mic, so if you can't hear me, just yell, and I'll put it closer to my face. So for those of you who missed me last night, and missed the event, my name is Carlos Mendes. I am a beer industry lawyer. I've had the privilege with working with many of you in the room, acting as general counsel to the Craft Brewers Guild. I am a partner at Singleton Reynolds in Vancouver, head of their craft beer practice group, and I am also a beer writer, written extensively about beer and the local beer industry in Scout Magazine, teacher or guest lecturer at Kwantlen and SFU in their brewery operations programs, and MC. So I'm delighted to be returning for my third year here. Thank you to the Guild for having me. Obviously, they didn't review tapes of previous years when they made the decision to have me back, so I'm appreciative of that. And thank you as well, before we get started, to all the volunteers for their amazing role last night and today for making this all possible. So before we get everything started here, I want to give some thanks to last night's kickoff party sponsor, the Great Little Box Company, Brian Roth from Good Beer Hunting, Crystal Luxmore for the awesome guided tasting, the Download Chicken Shack, and Dave Boquette's Big Day Barbecue for supplying all the great food, and to DJ Heebie Jeebie for the music. I also want to thank and recognize all of our sponsors. So Vessel Packaging Company, formerly West Coast Canning, Matt and Ken and the Vessel team have been all in every year with the conference, and we all really appreciate how they've stepped up this year, and many thanks for the continued support. As mentioned, Great Little Box Company for sponsoring last night, BSG and Gambrinus, who are working together to host the after party tonight, Capri and CMW, which is the official insurance partner of the Guild, and presenting one of the breakout sessions today, Singleton Reynolds, which is providing me. And as many of you know, I work with the Guild from day one. I've been to 3 different firms now, and I've been delighted to be returning and be here today with so many of my colleagues downstairs at our booth. We're going to be here throughout the day. Hops Connect, who is presenting today's keynote speaker, Mile 37, which will be filming today's event and producing video content, which, as in previous years, will soon be available on the members site. Capital T, who are providing us with the glassware and swag bags and volunteer shirt. Creative Boulevard, who have done a great job on the notebook for this year's conference. Silver presenting sponsors, RBC, which are conducting 2 panels in the breakout room on the 3rd floor. Thank you. Moneris, which is presenting the talk by Crooked Stave's Chad Jacobson today. Container World, which is presenting the Blind Enthusiasm presentation. Cantax, which is putting together a presentation at 11:15 in the round room. MNP, which is presenting our Diversifying the Marketplace panel. Boxmaster, who have sponsored the morning refreshment break. Specific Mechanical, who have sponsored our afternoon refreshment break. Cask Brewing Systems, our lanyard sponsor. Line 49, who have designed the conference's new website. And L&K Collective, who have created the conference's branding. Yesterday, when I arrived, I bumped into Don Gordon, who was elemental in getting this the guild up and running. I don't know if Don's in the audience here. No, I had too much fun last night. But he was looking at all the sponsors who were listed on the banner downstairs, and was just amazed at what this has grown to over the years. And we're so appreciative for everyone who has come out here today. So a new feature, you all got your cards for the scavenger hunt. The prize winners are going to be announced at 10:15 before our keynote speaker today, Steve Bechesney from Bose. So before I turn over the stage to Ken, who will be providing a top line of the Guild's activities over the last year, I have to say it's hard not to stand up here and look out at so many of you in this brand new venue without reflecting back on the first BC Craft Brewers Conference, which I attended 6 years ago at the Imperial, along with several of you in the room today. Now, as some of you may recall, the big news that day was the rumor that Main Street Brewing would be opening imminently, and that Vancouver would be getting a new brewery. Novelty it was back then. So I ended up, when the news broke around 4 that the brewery had just opened, there was a mass exodus from the event, and I ended up splitting a cab with a couple of fellas that I had just met who were in the process of opening breweries in Port Moody, one named Adam and one named Mike. So back then, Adam Crandall and Mike Coghill were all wide-eyed, super excited, not at all jaded, and were still holding on to their day jobs. Now, as everybody knows, both are established, successful, and highly respected members of this industry, and both are on the Guild's board. So it's really amazing to consider how much this industry has grown in the last 6 years, and as I noted a few years ago on this stage, driven by a collective desire to take something amazing and through hard work, innovation, and the spirit of collegiality, make it better. As you may recall, 3 years ago, the Guild took over this event, and we've never looked back. Programming has been fantastic, and due to interest from attendees, suppliers, and sponsors, we've needed to move to a bigger location this year. Today, depending on who you ask, we now have over 170 independent operating craft breweries and brew pubs in over 60 communities in BC, employing nearly 4,500 people. There you go, right? Economic driver. There you go. Now, as some of you know, I've been working with the folks over at the BC Craft Beer Awards for the last 5 years now and sponsoring the Rookie of the Year Award. And I can't tell you how impressed I am every year when I see the contenders for the award. This year, we have breweries like Slackwater, House of Funk, Another Beer Co., and Ile Sauvage, which I'm sure you'd agree is a super impressive list. As I've said many times, the fact that 2 breweries are opening in 2 different cities in the last year that focus on barrel programs and sours, I think really speaks to the maturity of this industry and of consumer palates. So it's also amazing to reflect back on the folks who've organized this all today. Since really taking shape as part of the YAP report consultation process, the Guild has matured into an effective, impactful industry organization that works with regulators to get things done as your collective voice. And that is a big difference from where we were 6 years ago. So I regularly get asked about where the industry is going, and despite the occasional hiccup and contraction, I remain as optimistic and positive as ever. So sure, there are significant challenges, and everybody knows it's getting tougher and tougher to operate and open a brewery in Vancouver, and that competition for consumer attention has never been fiercer. However, I can attest, not only from the rookie class of 2019, but also from my work with my clients over the last year, that this industry is still growing at an impressive rate, and with much of this growth occurring outside the Lower Mainland and with tons in the pipeline. So a telling statistic on where we're at is per capita breweries, that is the number of breweries for every 100,000 drinking age adults between BC and similar US states. Now, if I was like Brian Roth or Bart Watson, I'd have like my stats up here and I'd be walking around, but I don't. I just have some written remarks, so bear with me. So, with all the growth we've experienced in the last 7 years, you'd probably think we would be somewhere near Washington, Colorado, or maybe Oregon. But actually, we're not even close. In fact, in 2018, we had about 4.5 breweries per capita in BC, while Oregon had 8.5, Colorado had 8.4, and Washington had 6.7. Vermont, which was top of the list, had 11.5. So our closest equivalents were Idaho and New Mexico, which you wouldn't really consider craft meccas. When you consider how much this category has grown, thanks to world-class product, initiatives like the Ale Trail, the hard work of the Guild, and of everyone who makes a living in this industry, I think this trend will just continue its upwards trajectory. Now, one theme I spoke to in my opening remarks last year was the opportunity this conference presents to everyone to catch up with old friends, kind of act like we did when we first started going to beer events, especially now as a lot of people's businesses have matured, they're not going to the events as much anymore, and talk to people that we don't know, trade stories, and geek out about beer. And generally help continue to foster that camaraderie and collegiality that makes this industry so special. So as you know, there are multiple sessions happening throughout the day today, so be sure to divide and conquer. Spread your teams around, hit up all the sessions. And as I mentioned, be sure to support the over 60 suppliers who are joining us today. Every one of them has something of value to offer you, and every person attending has taken time out of their busy schedules to share it with you, from accounting to banking to legal to equipment. These people are here to answer your questions, give you tips, so please make sure to go around to every booth and actively engage. And last but not least, let's not forget to thank the fine people who donated all the beer for the conference. Yeah. So the bar, I'm happy to report, will be opening at noon, and that is noon Pacific, so not noon any other time zone. So in closing, I want to wish you all a fantastic day and remind you to please plan a safe ride home and between venues and to drink responsibly. And now, without further ado, I'd like to turn things over to my good friend, executive of the BC Craft Brewers Guild and Mr. Craft Beer himself, Ken Beattie.
Thanks, everybody. How do you like the new digs? We've kept the heat off to make sure you stay awake. I've got an extra layer of fat on me just to make sure I stay awake. So thank you very much all for coming. Carlos, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. As Carlos said, he is a partner at Singleton Reynolds and does a myriad of other jobs other than just the great work he does in the beer industry for us. And it's the third year, as he said, as our Master of Ceremony. And thank you very much for all you've done. You've been a true partner to the Guild, advising us and guiding us, often counseling me, knocking me off the edge, taking me off the edge, my psychiatrist some days, over some barrel-aged beers that we both have a passion for, taking us through some complicated government advocacy issues while remaining a valuable resources to our newest members and our existing members. So thank you for all the work you've done, Carlos. It's really appreciated. I'd also like at this time to express, on behalf of all our members, our sincere gratitude for our presenting sponsor, Vessel Packaging. They have been with us from day one, and as some, if you've organized, and this is okay, this is an okay thing, sometimes, there's demands on you as we're going to do this event, and then the sponsors say, well, we need this, I got to be at this booth, I got to have my sign here, I got to do all this, which is all okay. We're totally cool with that. That's good. Vessel Packaging has just been, what do you need? When can we get it for you? We're in. Whatever you need, we're doing. That's always been the work. So we want to thank Matt and Kevin and his whole team at Vessel for what they've done. And we're proud to be, I think, possibly the first conference that they're at with their new brand. So we'd just like to quickly introduce them to you all on the screen here. So before we started, I just want to take a few minutes to review some of the activities that the Guild has accomplished this year and touch on the activities that we continue to work on. Probably the biggest thing and the biggest change and the most gratitude that I have is we've now got to a spot, obviously, where I can travel the province much more freely than I used to be able to. We used to be quite constrained by budget in the early years. But conferences like this and the support of you and our sponsors really helped this. So I've been really lucky to travel around the province this year, much more. And when I go into the towns, I hold town hall meetings. So I've been able to do them in Courtenay, Powell River, Vernon, Penticton, and Nelson. It's been really great to get out because we are the provincial body. We are not just the urban center or the Urban Craft Brewers Guild. So it's been really great to hear people's challenges on a municipal level or a local level and to meet a number of the breweries. So I'll continue to do that. There'll be more activity for that moving forward. The biggest news that we have out of the tourism side is the craft beer industry is now recognized as a tourism sector by Destination BC, which is a huge accomplishment because this enables us to take full control of all aspects of the BC Ale Trail. We had not been directly responsible for the fiscal budget of the program needed because how the system worked, you needed to work with an existing recognized sector. We had a great relationship with over 30 DMOs, including Sunshine Coast Tourism and Paul Kamen's team, who was that conduit to the financing. That has now been taken over by us. So that sector designation really opens up a new level of opportunity and interaction where we can move forward from this day. Our key stakeholders are our customers. You're our customers, our members, the 30-plus tourism partners, and over 100 ancillary businesses that we need to connect the interests of all of them together in order to drive business to each of our stakeholders' doors. Transparency is the key here, not silos, not the DMO working in isolation and not including the breweries and vice versa, and not including, and the guild kind of managing all of this. So I think you're going to see a big change in the BC Ale Trail in the coming years. We've appointed a full-time project manager. You may or may not know this, but we have promoted, thankfully, Monica Frost to work directly with the stakeholder partners in the DMOs and the ancillary partners. So that's a big change for us. We were able to accomplish this because we also applied to the Western Economic Diversification Fund that was very interested in the tourism piece for us and obviously the BC Ale Trail. And we were able to secure $160,000 over the next 2 years in funding with the federal government. So we wanted to thank them. This is kind of the first time we've really basically talked about that. It allowed us to hire Monica full-time, we will be developing POS, sales tools, and signage for the Ale Trail partners. We'll be asking for your input and feedback. We're going to update content, create new videos, update existing videos, because when we started this 4 years ago, maybe there's been one or two extra breweries in line in some of the territories, so we'll be able to do that. And we've added additional partnerships as one of the things that we're going to look at. We did something with the private retail stores. We look to do some maybe farm and table restaurant activities and actions, so we're working with the BC Restaurant Association on something along that lines. And you're going to hear later about the BC Ale Trail app rollout, but I don't want to steal any of their thunder. In terms of government relations, the BTAP report, which I was happy to be included on, it's been somewhat, I'll be honest, a frustrating process. It's almost 2 years that since the report went in. It's been a very slow kind of process, but mainly and understandably that was because of the cannabis issues and trying to download how to deal with cannabis. So the government does recognize it. Minister Eby recognizes it as the roadmap to all future liquor policy, but there has been some little movement. We did have an in-person meeting with Minister in July. The whole board, the panel went back to him in person, and we talked about the need to move things along because we're getting frustrated. And he agreed, and he's reappointed Mark Hicken to reconvene the panel to work directly with his policymakers and the recommendations to get kick-started. So that's a good sign for us. There's a number of things that are very important to our members in there. We hope that this recommendation is a sign that they'll start to tick some boxes on some of the recommendations finally. We also are dealing still with various aspects of contract manufacturing. The new reporting system is, as you're all aware, started April 2019. That was a result of the consultation that we did last fall at this meeting at our AGM, where brewers now declare their on-site and off-site worldwide production to establish their markup. So that was a great win for us. Working with the LCRB, we're going to finalize the minimal manufacturing requirements for breweries because, and that was that piece about what size you need, what equipment you need that we consulted on. So we put that forward to the government, and we're expecting actually an announcement hopefully by the end of this year. We're working with the LDB to establish a policy to apply the blended markup. You guys had a vote on the 80-20 rule. We've got together, gone back and worked with finance department at LDB, and they've gotten back to us, we've gotten back to them, and now we're going to put it out to you guys. We've created a survey to capture our members' feedback for this proposal, and we'll be sending that out to all members in good standing by next week. It's important, though, to note that whatever the decision is, and if we move forward to it, the way that it'll work with the government, it'll be at least 2 years in advance. So if they decided by the end of this year that they wanted to implement this policy, it wouldn't be in effect till 2022. So you'll have lots of time to make a business decision. Working with wholesale, LDB, and retail, A number of you were at the Liquor Symposium last Wednesday. Evolving customer experiences together was the theme. Kind of ironic, but there's a clue there, what they were doing. It will be, we will forward to those who weren't at that symposium. They're going to send us their slides. We will forward that to everybody. And if you have some questions, you can follow up with me on it. The presentation was focused on their results of category management, their successes, their challenges, and most importantly for you guys, how they expect you to do business moving forward. It was the roadmap to deal with the government. Aggressive LTOs would be what they're looking for. They're looking to get greater margin. They're looking for bridge buying opportunities. They're looking for exclusivities and package preferences. They like to hear your stories and your accolades. They like expansion of craft beer signage. If you've been to the Cloverdale store, that's kind of the model that they want to move forward, which is awesome. It's double-digit growth in the Cloverdale store since they started to market it as BC Craft Beer. Support for in-store tastings and tasting kitchen opportunities they're looking for. And they also mentioned, which is interesting to me, social media awareness, where to buy their products. So we all put out information on where to get the product, and there's been a lot of issues with social media, certainly. But the BC LRLS had talked about they go on websites to see if your listing, if you've got an end aisle display, as we do, say, with BC Craft Beer Month this month, they want us to be promoting that out to everybody. So there's a little clue there that I would start to recommend that. And they also, something that we've brought up in every meeting for a number of years now is about date coding and traceability. I sent something out yesterday from Beer Canada. By July 2020, you need to be able to trace one step forward, one step behind where the grain come, and one step forward to where it's coming from. So there is, I sent all that information to you. If you didn't get that email, the RSVP date is October 21st. The webinar is on October 24th. I highly recommend you looking into that because that's coming. That's a federal law, so it'll be rather important for us to know. The good news on that is we have several breweries such as Nelson and Crannog and Dogwood who have been doing this because they're organic anyways. So Rebecca has actually volunteered to, or I've chosen-tiered, to help us manage this because they've been doing this for quite a while because it's all part of their organic status. Wholesale warehouse seems to have gotten over the worst of their challenges, but certainly not where we'd like it to be. And they've told us that they are bringing in more breweries and SKUs into the system after the Christmas season. There has been a waiting list. They're ready to go. I happened to tour there recently. They do have room. But the key piece to that is what they said is you will not get into the liquor store system if you're not using date codes. And not just date codes on the package. Anything that you're selling that I can buy individually, whether it be a six-pack or a bomber, it has to have a date code or they will not do business with you. So that's something we've been telling you is going to be coming, and it now certainly looks that way. Just in finishing, I'd like to just echo some more thank yous. Suppliers, without your support, we wouldn't be able to pull this off. We've grown by 30% this year, which is remarkable. Guest speakers, both local, out of province, and out of country, thank you so much for taking time and coming to join us today. To all our members, it's all about you. This whole thing is put on for you guys, and we really appreciate the support that we have. And as Carlos said, we really appreciate the beer donations. That helps. And we ironically go through about all of it, so it doesn't go to waste. Shocking. I'd like to thank the board of the Guild for their advice, their direction, and their seminar content suggestions. A lot of the people that you see, those were ideas that the board put forward to us January, February, and March. So we're happy that we've been able to do that. I'd also like to thank, and I don't know if you're going to be able to pull it up, but if you can get that picture off my desktop, that would be great. And if you can't, It's okay. So we wanted to thank, if you haven't seen it, I sure hope you have, the Class of 214 is our collaboration beer this year. We've done this for several years. It used to be a way to stay afloat for us 6 years ago, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. But now we're able to actually donate back to a charity. And a little bit later, I'm going to bring Dana Lee Harris up from BC Hospitality Foundation to talk. But that's our charity of choice. The really cool thing, and not to steal his thunder either, is it has our new seal, the Canadian Craft Brewers seal on it. And so Rick Dalmazzi is going to talk to you a bit more about that. I'd like to thank Leah Hennigan from Good Room Productions for her vision, her clear direction, her execution of every detail, and her world-class multitasking skills. Not only is she organizing all of today's events, but she'll be appearing on stage later tonight, singing in the after party. And last but certainly not least, Monica Frost, my co-conspirator on most things that happen around here in the day-to-day business. Doing the conference planning, managing our communication strategy, and now her new role as project lead in the BC Ale Trail, which is a long time coming. She's been absolutely instrumental in working with the board and myself as we manage our everyday business, the growth and the new opportunities that keep us busy every day. I used to think I was the best board decision ever, but guaranteed Monica Frost is the best board decision ever. As I said, our charity of choice is the BC Hospitality Foundation. I'd like to bring up Dana Lee Harris just to have a chat about the foundation.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Show of hands, has anyone heard of the BC Hospitality Foundation? Yay, we're getting there. So in 2007, I'll give you a little bit about my background. I used to be a sales rep in the wine and spirits side, and now I do consulting in the wine and spirits and beer side. And in 2007, sales rep for Maxium at the time had a car accident, but he was rear-ended by a guy that was texting and driving, and he signed off with ICBC within 6 days or 5 days, and he thought he was fine, and 6 weeks later he had a stroke, and that was directly related to the car accident, but he couldn't go back to ICBC. So a group of, he needed a product to help him breathe at night. If he didn't have that machine to help him breathe at night, he might not wake up in the morning. So, and it wasn't covered by medical. A group of us salespeople at the time got together and raised $50,000 for him. And he was a humble guy, so he didn't really want to take the money, but he needed to. And he made us promise that if he did take the money, we would start a charity on his behalf. So we started a charity, the BC Hospitality Foundation. We needed to expand from just helping people in the hospitality industry. We needed to also give out scholarships in order to get our charity number. So we've had our charity number for about 10, 11 years. And what we do in short is we get employees in the hospitality and tourism business back to work. And we are not government funded. We get all our funds from things like the collaborative beer, from fundraisers that we do, online lotteries, and monthly donations and payroll deductions. So that is what we do in short. Just take a look at my notes here. So let's see. So far, we've given out $1.2 million since our inception, and you can give that a big round of applause. We've given out $1.2 million. About 80% of our money really is beneficiary money. And 20% goes out to our scholarships. When we sort of analyze the numbers, that's how we give it out. We give it about $40,000 a year in scholarships. We do this, as I say, through payroll deductions, through monthly donations, and one of the things that I was super excited about, because every time I say this, I like beer. I always think of Barry Kavanagh. I like beer. Do you like beer? But I like beer. And when Ken came to me, and we've known each other for a long time, and said we'd like to do a collaborative beer, I've been trying to make it happen. And we, the first year we did it with Phillips Brewery, and that was 2018. It was made at Phillips Brewery, and it was a triple dry hopped lager. And the project involved BC Craft Brewers Guild, obviously. Brew Hall was who sold it. Phillips Brewing and Malting, and IMS Labels and West Coast Canning. Hopefully I didn't forget anyone there. With the money that was given to us, there was $10,000 donated between Phillips and between TAP. We have put aside 20% of that for a scholarship, which Ken's going to talk about in a little bit. So this is going to be our first brewery scholarship. Most of our scholarships have been culinary, hospitality, and that sort of thing. I'm super excited to try this, so make sure that I get one of these at lunch. And so one of the things that we've got happening outside is a raffle draw. If you want to come by, we've got 3 prizes. We've got $100 at Cactus Club. We've got Weston Bear Mountain, and we also stay at Weston Bear Mountain, which is where we host our golf tournament. And then we also have a Canoe Brew Pub gift certificate for $100. So this beer was made in conjunction with, and it is a really funny picture because so it's on our Facebook page. If you decide you want to look it up, it is a good picture. Makes Ken and I feel very, very old. It's made by Bad Tattoo Brewing Company, Barkerville Brewing Company, Black Kettle, Bomber Brewing, British Columbia Hop Growers Association was involved, Category 12 Brewing, Daggerad, Gambrinus, Main Street Brewing, Moody Ales, Sherwood Mountain Brewing, Steel and Oak, Strange Fellows, and Tree Brewing, and it was made at Yellow Dog. It was a totally fun day to go out there and do that. Sorry, I'm just suffering from a little bit of a cold. One of the things that we do to raise funds, it's our third-party events as well, and online lotteries. So we've got a few lotteries that happen this year. We are right now doing a Hotels to Help lottery. There's $28,000 worth of prizes online. You can buy your lottery tickets. It's our biggest fundraiser. When I saw, I've been doing this for 2 years. When I saw how well we did with the lotteries, I opened it up, and we actually do a Wine Country to Help lottery, and this is the first time that I've even mentioned this to Ken and Monica, but I would love to do a BC Ale Trail or BC Craft Brewers to the Rescue lottery at some point in time and get people out to the other areas to try some craft beer. So Ken's going to talk a little bit about the scholarship a little later, but I want to thank everybody so much, and please come by and say hello. And if you have any employees that are, we help out people in the hospitality industry, whether they're employees of the hospitality industry that are having a financial issue because of a health-related condition, or if it's their spouse or their children. We've helped people that have had to come from the Okanagan down to Vancouver. We've just made sure that they've been able to keep their house because their child's got cancer. We are last resort. When I was coming down here, this same time last year, we helped out a bartender at one of the restaurants downtown who had found himself in a difficult mental health situation and found himself out on the streets. And I remember it was over the Thanksgiving weekend, and it was pouring rain. And Lucy, who you'll meet, drove down here on a Sunday to get the money to a caregiver of his to make sure that he could find an apartment because he found the homeless shelter too difficult. We made sure that he had a job that he could go back to, but this is the kind of stuff that we do on Sundays, coming down to the downtown east side on Thanksgiving to help these people out. So there you go. Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. As Dana Lee said, we are announcing today a scholarship with our partners, not only BC Hospitality Foundation, but some of the money that was raised, particularly last year, between Matt Phillips, or Phillips Brewing, and Brew Hall. Part of that money goes not only to the foundation, but it goes to a newly formed scholarship for the Kwantlen Brewing Program. And we're going to make it in the name of Nancy Moore. It'll be the Nancy Moore Scholarship. Nancy is somewhere in here, but it's so bright, I'm not quite sure where she is. But I'm going to tell you a little bit, so I don't get this wrong. I'm going to tell you, because Nancy has this excessively great, legendary, she hates it when I call her a legend, but I get the pleasure of teaching the second-year students every Monday morning with Nancy in the fall at the class. Nancy Moore is an icon in BC craft brewing community, as well as being an internationally respected brewer, having set up and operated breweries in Europe, Russia, and Africa, as well as Canada. Her depth of experience in the brewing world, her passion for the education, her advocacy for gender equality in the workplace make her a powerful force in this industry. Nancy's contribution to the future of this industry continued when she helped design and develop the curriculum at Kwantlen Polytech University's two-year brewing and brewery operations diploma. Her expertise in global knowledge have helped elevate KPU's brewing program, making it a world-class brewing school recognized by the Masters Brewers Association, and I think this is super cool, as well as being the top brewing school in North America in 2019 at the U.S. Open College Beer Championships. That is certainly worth a clap. As an instructor in the brewing program, Nancy loves to encourage her students and champion their successes. When students were asked a few words to describe her, they used words like powerful, passionate, engaged, a leader, an advocate, dynamic, humble, thoughtful, practical, creative, powerhouse, unique, expert, supportive, mentor. She's a legend. She's extremely proud to see the KPU grads running breweries and making their mark in this industry, especially seeing more women graduate in the program and taking on head positions. I think it's clear to say that we're all proud to have Nancy as an instructor and as a mentor, and we are proud to be able to start this scholarship in Nancy's name moving forward. So thank you very much, Nancy. And finally, as you may be aware, we had a schedule change. If you're expecting to see the liquor licensing and LDB industry update, they had to cancel unexpectedly, well, somewhat expectedly, at the end of this week, or the start of this week. The government is trying its best to save some money for us all. They are restricting some discretionary spending and travel, which I think benefits us all. Our loss is probably the province's gain by them not being able to do some things that they wanted to do. They do send their sincere apologies, but we have great depth and bench strengths in the beer industry. So it's my pleasure to introduce Rick Dalmazzi, the Executive Director of the Canadian Craft Brewers Association. Rick is a seasoned business executive who lived and worked in cities across Canada and the United States. He served as a CEO, a president, a COO, and a VP of business development for many product and services companies, ranging from in size from venture-backed to publicly traded. Rick has a technology sector executive in the Silicon Valley during the internet boom, and CEO of Certicom Corp, where he took the company public on the NASDAQ. Certicom was eventually acquired by BlackBerry, probably when BlackBerry was a big thing, I guess. After returning to Canada, Rick transitioned to the food and beverage sector, our gain, thank goodness, and in the role as a partner and the chief operating officer at Sawdust Brewery, the award-winning craft brewery located in the Muskoka, Ontario. He also serves as the treasurer for the Ontario Craft Brewers Association, and he has recently become the first executive director of the Canadian Craft Brewers Association, which is our trade association supporting craft breweries across the country. So it's my pleasure to introduce Rick Dalmazzi.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here. I've got to take that BlackBerry thing out of my bio, though, for sure. Sort of shows my age a little bit, but yeah. And in 2013, I found myself moving myself and my family from Ottawa to a little town in Muskoka, just about an hour and a half north of Toronto, called Gravenhurst, for reasons that to this day I still don't really understand. But there we were in this nice little town, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. As Ken told you, I'd done a bunch of stuff in my career in the tech sector, And I was actually kind of thinking of semi-retiring. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. But I sort of got bored of that, and I heard that there was a craft brewery in town that was opening up. It's called Sawdust City Brewery. So I met the founders, Rob Engman and Sam Corbet. Sam is the brewmaster. And I got involved, and so that was sort of my beginning in the craft beer world. So I sort of stumbled into it. I don't have the brewing cred that most of you guys have in this room. And I can tell you that in the software world, I never had to carry a 140-pound keg down a flight of stairs to a customer. Or in my case, I sort of dragged the keg, because I can't really carry those things. But I do know a little bit about business. And so we got the brewery going. I kind of ran the business side. Sam did the beer side, and it worked pretty well. We're about a 8,000 hect brewery, and I've really enjoyed my time in the sector. About a year or so ago, actually more than a year or so ago, we started talking. Actually, it was 3.5 years ago. We started talking about a national association. Every province has their own provincial association, but we didn't have a national association. So it actually started right here, not here, technically in Richmond, 3.5 years ago at the Craft Brewers Conference, or at the Canadian Brewing Awards and Conference. We invited Acacia Coast from the Brewers Association to talk to us about the guilds, the different state guilds that they have down there, and kind of give us some tips on how to start a national association. And at the end of it, she kind of said, guys, you know, you really should get going. I can't think of any other craft beer drinking country around the world that doesn't have a national association. So we thought, okay, we better get going. But then, you know, things get busy in the craft beer world, and we didn't do too much about it until the following year, when Steve Beauchesne was a keynote speaker at the Canadian Brewing Awards and Conference in Ottawa. Steve will be our keynote speaker here today. And he was really a strong proponent for this, probably the strongest proponent for a national association. And he kind of gave us a rallying cry. Let's do this thing. Let's see if we can put it together and reap the benefits of it. And so here's what we did. During that following year, we did a survey to all the craft brewers across the country. I don't remember how many it was in those days, but right now we have over 1,000 in Canada. But we had got 136 responses, and we asked the question, do we need a Canadian Craft Brewers Association? And overwhelmingly, the answer was yes. And if we put one together, would you join it? And overwhelmingly, the answer was yes. So that, you know, put a little wind in our sails, so we thought, okay, let's do this. So I was asked to kind of take the lead on it. I got together as many of the provincial association heads that I could find across the country, because this was only now 1.5 years ago, and we really hadn't talked much to each other across the country. And we had what we call the Halifax Summit, again at the Canadian Brewing Awards. We got together and we decided, okay, we're going to put this together. We all signed a document that we were committed to it. I put together a proposal that was adopted, and we kind of took off. There's Steve in the back. He was very excited because we actually were going to do this thing, and we were off and running. So at the CBAs in May of this year, we announced the Canadian Craft Brewers Association, beginning of May, and we were formally off and running. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about the sort of defining principles, and I'll try to, obviously, try to relate it to all your businesses. Unlike the Brewers Association in the U.S., many of you are probably members, or some of you may be members of the Brewers Association in the U.S. They've been around for 20 years or so. You join that association directly as a craft brewer. In Canada, we're doing it differently. We're working through the provinces. So we're constructed as a federation of provincial associations. The membership is the provincial associations themselves, craft breweries from right across the country, and suppliers and service providers. All can become members of the Canadian Craft Brewers Association. To become a brewery member, you must be a member of your provincial association. And all 10 provinces have a provincial association. The territories do not. We have craft breweries in every territory, New Brew, Nunavut Brewery, just opened in Iqaluit recently, so we've got the entire province covered now with craft breweries. And so those breweries can join directly, but in the provinces, you must be a member of your Provincial Craft Brewers Association. That automatically qualifies you to be a member of the National Association. We have one board member representing each provincial association, so Ken sits on our board. And we have one board member representing the breweries in each of the 5 geographic regions. And I'll show you who those are in a minute. And in terms of funding, there are transfer payments from the provincial associations. So when you join the National Association, your brewery does not pay for that. Ken pays for you to get the benefits of the National Association. So part of your fees going forward that you pay to the BC Craft Beer Association. I'm sorry, I didn't get that name right exactly, right, Ken? The BC Craft Brewers Guild. And that's right. So Ken's paying for you to join. And then as we roll out programs, if you decide there are some that you like, there will be a small cost for those, and that will keep us going and growing. Okay, so these are the board members. As I said, one from every province. Those individuals run their provincial associations in their respective provinces. And we sort of hand-picked this first time around some brewery owners from across the country to represent all of you on the board as well. And I'm pleased to tell you that Chloe Smith from Townsite Brewery is your Western province's rep on our board. So welcome, Chloe. Bob Baxter, who is with Yukon Brewing, the owner of Yukon Brewing in Whitehorse. Steve Beauchesne in Van Cleek Hill, Beau's Brewery. Frederic Tremblay is Microbrasserie Charlevoix in Quebec. And Emily Tipton is in Shelburne, Nova Scotia. And she's at Boxing Rock Brewery. So that's the board representing you. So these are our priorities. These are the things that we've decided are important to help our industry really grow and prosper. Number one, we want to promote and protect the interests of craft breweries in every province and territory in Canada. We actually stole that from the Brewers Association. When I first saw that, I just loved it. I just thought it was very crisp, very succinct. It's really what we're doing. Let's talk about first the protect the interests of. We have not had, until now, a national voice for craft beer in Ottawa. And let me tell you why that's important. Ken just laid out for you all the things that he does and his team gets involved with in terms of talking to your provincial government here. But we haven't had that voice in Ottawa. Up until now, Beer Canada has been the voice of beer in Canada. I know Luke Harford. He's a great guy. Beer Canada is, doing some good things for the beer industry in Canada, but their bosses are not our friends. AB InBev and Molson Coors, the people that work for those companies are as passionate about their jobs as we are about ours. I was in Denver earlier this year. I stopped in Golden, Colorado, did a tour of Coors. The people there have been working for Coors for generations. They're passionate about the company and their beer. But the people that run those companies in boardrooms in Belgium and Brazil and elsewhere are not our friends. So when we talk to the federal government now, we're not going to be solely represented by Beer Canada. We're going to be represented by ourselves, the Canadian Craft Brewers Association. And we'll explain to the federal government the economic impact that we make in communities right across Canada. Name me, and here's what we say, name me one other industry in Canada that in the last 10 years has put a new manufacturing facility in hundreds of communities across Canada, many of them small communities. You can't name one. The only one you can name is the craft beer community, our industry. So we'll advocate and explain to the federal government why when they're doing their policies and doing their finances, why we deserve support, because the economic impact that we provide is absolutely unmatched across any industry, and that's our story. That's our story to the federal government. So when it comes to federal taxation in the form of excise duty, which you all pay, for example, again, the big beer companies probably have a different view of how excise taxes should be collected than we do. If you're a government and you're the Minister of Finance, you've got a big spreadsheet, you've got a taxation spreadsheet, excise taxation. It's a zero-sum game. You've got to get X. If you give up some in one spot, you've got to get it from another spot. So we probably have, I can tell you, we definitely have a different view of how that taxation should be spread than Beer Canada does. So again, we'll work with them when it's to our benefit, but we'll definitely represent our own voice to the decision makers in Canada to protect our interests. Products and labeling. Ken told you about some standards that are coming down that we all have to adhere to next year in terms of the traceability standards. So yes, Beer Canada has done some good work, and they're presenting. They've done some research, and right now they're the voice presenting our requirements and our thoughts to the Canadian government. But generally speaking, when the Canadian government talks about processes, they have to understand that small companies, small sort of struggling companies like some of us are, have a harder time implementing new standards. You can't hold us to the same timetables and the same requirements as very large companies. So again, we'll promote and we'll educate to make sure that the decisions that are made in Ottawa have us in mind. Interprovincial trade is another one, import-export policy. And at some point, we'll work on standardizing across all the provinces things like even just the definition of craft beer. If you take a look at the regulations around distribution, et cetera, across the provinces, they're different in every province. So we'll work towards standardizing that. It may take a lifetime, I'm not sure, but I think it's a good goal. What I've observed in looking at all of you or all of us in the last 5 years is we are awesome at making beer. What we're not necessarily awesome at is finding enough time to run our companies properly. I'm not saying you're not running your company properly, but there's always more that can be done. So I'm really suggesting that it's time for our industry, all of you, all of us, to really lean into the business side of our businesses. Understand the numbers. Understand where we would be profitable and where we're maybe not so profitable, that kind of thing. So what we're going to attempt to deliver through the National Association, working with the provinces, are programs for you to take advantage of that help you with your businesses and help you look at your bottom line. Everybody here knows beer. That's terrific. The business side of your business is really what we're going to help you lean into. And we'll do that in some cases partnering with national vendors to help deliver some of these programs. Ken referred to it, and I'm going to reinforce the role that our vendors, suppliers, service providers play in our industry. I tell you, coming out of the tech sector, I'd never seen anything like this. Our brewery is in kind of a vacation spot, and we do very well in the summer, but in the winter, it's tough. It's lean. And, I can't believe the support that we get from our vendors in terms of financial terms, in terms of being patient with us during the lean months. I mean, I've never seen that in my career. So our suppliers and vendors that support us with these conferences are a very, very important part of our ecosystem. I'm hoping that a number of them will join our association and be sort of part of our movement. And we're very, very lucky to have the partners that we do. And finally, there's a system that you'll be hearing more about called the Gemini benchmarking system. I'm hoping that you'll all participate in it. We're not quite ready to launch it yet. But it's a joint project of ourselves and Emerson Engineering and a local partner of theirs called Spartan Controls. It's a benchmarking system. And benchmarking is really a really interesting way for you to understand how you're doing, how your business is doing versus your industry, versus standards, versus best of breed. So benchmarking is a process of continually comparing your company's operations data like production, human resources, sales, finances, to its past performance, to sector averages, and to industry best practices. So let me give you an example. When we first sat down and we opened up the brewery, Sam was sort of in the back. You know, he had his brew house installed. He was brewing away. We knew how to do beer. I was sitting up in the head office thinking, okay, I guess we're going to need some sales reps, and I guess we're going to need some marketing people. I guess we're going to need some business acumen here. How many of those do I need? How many sales reps, you know, we were doing at the time, I don't know, 4,500 hex. How many sales reps do I need? What do I pay them? How do I incentivize them? How many finance people should I have? Those kinds of things. So just things that are pretty standard. And I would have loved to have had a system like this that I could sign on to and say, okay, for all the 4,000 to 5,000 hec breweries across Canada, let's see what they do. On average, how many sales reps do they have? On average, what do they pay them? I'm picking on human resources. On average, how much do they spend? What is their gross profit? How much do they spend on ingredients versus labor? In terms of the production side, you know, the brewing efficiency as the liquid moves through the different stages. What's my loss each time? How many breweries actually have a centrifuge? Should I have a centrifuge? Am I ready for a centrifuge? So if you guys are willing to participate in this, the way it works is you input your information into the system. It remains anonymous. Only you see your information, and then you see it compared to other groups, and you can filter your province, your brewery size, etc. So just take a look for that. It's not ready yet, but when you see the Gemini system, that's what it is. I think it'll be an important product. And number 3, promotion. Raise awareness and knowledge of Canadian craft beer nationally and internationally. And the first thing that we are doing there is, as Ken said, we have announced and are shipping next week the Independent Craft Seal. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about how this was developed. We started looking at seals from craft beer countries around the world, and you'll recognize the one on the top left. You've probably seen the U.S. Independent Seal. There's the UK, Australia, et cetera. And we looked at these and we said, well, they're sort of, you know, they're cool, they're sort of interesting, but let's see if we can come up, we wanted to do one, let's see if we could come up with something that really had some meaning and really sort of capture what we're all about and put it, somehow package it into a little symbol that would go on cans and bottles. So we launched about six months ago into this project. I worked with a local corporate identity firm, design firm. We did focus groups and interviews and surveys and industry research. A number of you here in the Western provinces helped us with that. And we were asking the question, what characteristics define craft beer and craft breweries? We asked you guys and we asked consumers who drink our products. And so we came up with the Independent Craft Seal. It's a symbol of authenticity, a hallmark on the can or the bottle to indicate to consumers that the beer they're drinking has been developed, brewed, and sold by an authentic Canadian craft brewery. These are the characteristics that we came up with, that we were told, that define our industry, and we call it the 5 pillars of craft. The first is pride and passion, and we heard that from all of you. The seal includes a central banner as a declaration of the pride and passion that craft brewers have for their work. What we heard is that this is not a job, this is a passion. We don't do this necessarily to get rich. We do it because we believe in the culture and we believe in what we're doing, and we're passionate about it. So pride and passion. Is that 5 minutes? Okay. Independence is next. We are fiercely independent, and we're not going to let anyone tell us what to do. The third is community building. As I said earlier, we build communities. We're bricks and mortar breweries, and we build communities. Fourth, lots of taste innovation. And the fermenter represents where the experimentation happens. And finally, quality products, quality ingredients. Pride and passion, independence, community building, taste, innovation, and quality. And we began to design the seal. So there's the banner for craft brewery, pride and passion. There's the shield to represent our independence. Independence from anything that would compromise our ideals. There's the fermenter. That's where the magic happens. Where we create our taste innovation. Thousands and thousands of different beers that push the envelope. Up top, we see a bricks and mortar brewery to represent the community building that we do. And then finally, our ingredients, the hop bud. So in our logo, in our seal, you see the 5 elements of what we stand for, the 5 pillars of craft depicted in our independent craft seal. And hopefully, you folks will all proudly display it on your products. And as Ken said, you did here, your collaboration beer that you did out here was the first one in Canada to display the seal. So, next Tuesday, this is my last slide. What I'd like you to do is go to www.ccba-ambc.org, apply for membership in the National Association. You'll receive a confirmation email within 24 hours. Sign back in with your credentials to access your member area of the website for your brewery. Click on Get the Seal. There's a small annual license fee for you to be able to use the seal. It gives you unlimited use of the seal to put on your products for the entire year. Download the artwork and usage guide and proudly display the independent craft seal on your beers. Thank you.